broken clock on the back wall, counting down till the last bell rings. You lock the door with the plastic smile, say this is just our little secret thing. Ink stains on my test paper, your hand leaning where it shouldn't be. You twist the rules like a gold ring, say it's love, say it's meant to be. Leave the kids alone, you're not a savior, you're a thief of home. Predator in school clothes, life in a cage is a place you go. See ya, Chomo, see ya, Chomo. We need justice, not a whisper, sorry, go. Leave the kids alone, leave the kids alone. You hide behind a chalk halo, fake men are on a crooked throne. They call you ma'am, they call you sir, you use that power, strip us to the bone. Female face, male face, same crime, same cold eyes when the door clicks shut. Courtroom shrug, they were almost grown. Light little sentence, deep little cut. Leave the kids alone, you're not a savior, you're a thief of home. Predator in school clothes, life in a cage is a place you go. See ya, Chomo, see ya, Chomo. Need justice, not a whisper, sorry, go. Judge with a tired handshake, gave her falls like it's half awake. You get years, we can count on hands. We get scars, we can't understand. Names on a list, they move you towns. Paper walls, you still prowl around. Kids in rows like loaded guns. You pull the trigger, then you run. Leave the kids alone, you're not a savior, you're a thief of home. Predator in school clothes, life in a cage is a place you go. See ya, Chomo, see ya, Chomo. We need justice, not a whisper, sorry, go. Leave the kids alone, leave the kids alone, leave the kids alone.
Your first alert tonight, the Irmo Police Department says 14 men are off the streets and charged with criminal solicitation of a minor.
Undercover officers posed as minors or adults online with access to children to identify suspects before a child is harmed.
Our Kayla Page has what every Midlands parent needs to know.
Every arrest represents a potential victim who was protected.
The operation all took place in April, and Sergeant Kelly Mountzuros tells us no child was ever used or harmed in the process. For the majority of the men, Kelly says they came to a predetermined location and were arrested on scene.
These investigations are to send a very clear message to these child predators that this is not okay to exploit children online, and they will be identified and held accountable.
Officials with the South Carolina Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force share the red flags that every parent needs to know.
It knows no bounds. We arrested doctors, police officers in these things, in these undercover chat operations. So there's no prototypical offender that we're looking for. People take advantage of children all the time, and it's easy to do it online. You lock your door, you lock your windows, but you leave the internet wide open at your house, and that's how people get into your house and get into your children's lives.
Kevin Atkins is the chief investigator and says predators may send gifts and money to the victims, so parents and family members should be aware.
Be nosy. They may be upset with you, but it's a good thing to be nosy and really ask a lot of questions.
Stephanie Height is the outreach coordinator with the organization and says take note of how your kids are acting.
Knowing the red flags. Does a child's behavior change? Are they wearing different kinds of clothes? Are they biting their nails to the quick? We've had students that they used to be very excited and now they're very regressed, very, more down, wearing darker colors, and maybe they used to wear brighter colors.
Parents in the community sharing their reaction.
It is a concern for me, yes, especially when I can't always control what other children are viewing and what they might have access to. It is a concern for me. These things are close to home, and it's not something that happens in great big cities. It happens right here.
These folks contacting minors online has been a prolific problem, and it's a growing issue. And I'm just thankful that there's folks out there who are working undercover to try to track down these criminals before they're able to reach our kids. We'll continue to follow this case closely as the investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-888-CRIME-SC. Reporting in the newsroom, Kayla Page, WIS News 10.
Also new, a 23-year-old Tulare man is behind bars accused of child sex abuse. The Tulare County Sheriff's Office says Gavin Boswell engaged in unlawful sexual acts with a child under the age of 14. Detectives say during the investigation, another victim under the age of 14 came forward and reported similar abuse. Boswell is booked in the Tulare County pretrial facility on 10 felony counts. Detectives say there are likely more victims or witnesses and are asking them to contact the sheriff's office.
25 people are facing charges after an undercover child exploitation sting. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office says Operation Guardian's Watch took place from June 25th to June 28th. Undercover officers posed as minors online to catch the suspects who they thought were talking to children. This is the 7th undercover operation from the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which have resulted in 160 total arrests.
We have a Willimantic man facing charges accused of talking to an undercover FBI agent posing as an underage girl online. Police say 58-year-old Alexander Cruz attempted to meet up with the girl to have sex for money in Hartford. When Cruz arrived at the location, he was taken into custody by the Special Investigation Division. He's facing several charges and being held on a $500,000 bond.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with me today. What's really important to understand is that we've asked the community for help. Hey, we've really got an emergency here. We've got a senior citizen that went into Walmart, stalked a mother and a 5-year-old little girl, and then when mother was distracted shopping in one of the displays, he exposes himself in her presence. And then he walks past her and masturbates in the store in the middle of the day. Fortunately, a great Walmart employee saw this and immediately took action, notified the supervisor in the sheriff's office. For 2 days, we've been looking for this suspect, and we knew our community would come through, and they did. But let me give you a predicate before we start that. Let me remind you of something. Do you remember Santa Claus? Tom Hicks? That's right, the 68-year-old man who is a well-known Santa Claus in Central Florida in Polk County, that thousands upon thousands of children sat in his lap. And he was in the Christmas parade for at least a decade as the Santa Claus. That he tried to have sex with, traveled to have sex with a minor. We arrested him just a couple of months ago. He's still in the county jail. And you go, okay, Grady, so where's all this going? The guy we arrested is his brother. Did you hear what I said? David Hicks, Tom Hicks' younger brother. He's 62 years of age. We received a Crime Stoppers tip from the community, and I thank you. You can't get away with crime in Polk County, Florida, because our people in this community will recognize you and call us. This time they did it via Crime Stoppers. But there's more to this story than the fact that David Hicks exposed himself in front of a 5-year-old child after stalking her through the store and then masturbating. In 1991, he was arrested in South Carolina for indecent exposure, and he paid a fine. In 1992, he was arrested in Toccoa, Georgia, and there's no disposition on that case. In 1996, he was arrested in Escambia County, Florida, and finally somebody sent him to jail for 3 months for indecent exposure. In 1998, he was arrested again in Toccoa, Georgia, and that case was null prost. In 1998, he was charged with 2 counts of child molestation in Toccoa, Georgia. They withheld adjudication after all of that history and only gave him 5 years of probation. And then on Monday afternoon past, he is a sexual predator in a Walmart, sexually exposing himself to a 5-year-old little baby and then masturbating in the store in the middle of the day. This guy is a deviant. This guy needs to be locked up for a long period of time. As you can see, he's in custody. When we knocked on his front door after receiving the tip, he looked my deputies and detectives in the eye and said, "I know why you're here. I want a lawyer." He wouldn't talk. We've charged him with indecent exposure, which is a felony of the 3rd degree because of his criminal history. We've charged him also with exposure of sexual organs, which is a felony of the 3rd degree. We've also charged him with lewd exhibition in the presence of a child, which is a felony of the 2nd degree. That's a 15-year felony. Ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about a family affair. Both of these people are child sexual deviants. And we're not going to house them together in the county jail, but he needs to be in the county jail along with his brother who's already there, and then we need to send them both to state prison for the rest of their life. Now I want you to understand, this is only the ones he's been caught for committing. And as you know, he didn't just wake up and decide to do this. He's done this over and over, and we don't know how many times he got away with it, nor do we know how many other cases may be out there. Since we put this information out and our communities come forward, we are investigating at least one other incident that we know of up to this point in time against David Hicks. So David, you're going away to jail. You'll recognize your brother who's already there. Are there any questions?
Grady, obviously when you first heard that these two were related, you just obviously get your reaction like, oh my.
I was absolutely, totally shocked. They're brothers. I said, they're brothers. Our administrator of communications, Carrie, came in and said, I've got to tell you something. I thought she was messing with me. She said, I am not. She said, she brought this picture and said, Santa Claus's brother is this guy. And now we've got them both locked up in jail. I just hope there's no more brothers. Okay?
Okay, over to Eagle, Idaho. A late night call about people in a park after dark led the Eagle police to arrest a 20-year-old man on felony charges early July 9th. At about 10 after 2 in the morning, the Eagle police received a report of individuals walking in a park after dark. And when a deputy arrived to investigate, the deputy saw a person run behind the bathrooms. Deputy identified himself and asked the person to come forward. And of course, they were a little skeptical. They didn't do it at first. Anyway, so around the corner comes an adult male who was later identified as 20-year-old Mason Ahrens. He approached the deputy from another area of the park, and then the deputy then went to the back of the bathrooms and found a juvenile female. During the investigation, the police arrested that 20-year-old Eagle man on child enticement and lewd conduct charges. It was determined that Ahrens, Chomo here, had engaged in inappropriate behavior with the juvenile female. He'd snuck her out after dark, got her out of her window, and he was arrested on felony charges of enticing children over the internet and 2 counts of lewd conduct with a minor. Yep. Well, see ya, Chomo.
Yeah, that's right. A Buffalo priest who was put on administrative leave in 2019 was in federal court today after being arrested yesterday following an international investigation involving child exploitation.
FBI agents searched Nowak's home Wednesday, and they say they recovered multiple electronic devices, including folders that allegedly contained child abuse material. The diocese says Nowak has been on permanent leave since 2019. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, this is an international investigation. The FBI was notified by Scottish authorities of Jeffrey Nowak. The FBI received information related to a Telegram group whose members participated in group Zoom calls where the members were allegedly observed viewing and sharing child abuse material.
As technologies advanced and you have these encrypted apps, and now where individuals can participate in these sessions, it makes it much more difficult to sometimes find these folks.
The federal government steps in with the help of international law enforcement communities, with New Zealand, with Scotland. Finally, are able to bring the charges against this man, but. For years, the diocese refused to investigate the guy,
The U.S. Attorney's Office said this investigation began in September of last year. Nowak is due back in federal court on Monday. On your side in Buffalo, Chelsea Swift, Channel 2 News.
A man is behind bars tonight after being accused of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in Barbersville. Austin Killen from Barbersville is facing multiple charges, including first-degree sexual assault and strangulation. Deputies say they received a report claiming Killen had been touching the child for 2 years, and before locating him, he had been seen in both North and South Carolina and was also seen driving through Charleston. He's being held in the Western Regional Jail on a $100,000 cash bond only.
And the son of a Las Cruces bounty hunter is facing charges after allegedly having photos and videos of child sexual abuse on his phone. According to our sister station in Albuquerque, 37-year-old Matthew Hernandez is facing several charges, including possession of child pornography. On May 12th, a search warrant was carried out at a Las Cruces home in connection with an ongoing investigation of Robert J. Hernandez, the father of Matthew, who was arrested on several charges back in May. Multiple devices were seized, including Matthew Hernandez's cell phone. The United States Attorney's Office says investigators found child sexual abuse material and sexually explicit conversations with minors. He allegedly used messaging apps to request those photos from the minors. Matthew Hernandez will remain in custody pending a trial. He faces 25 years to life in prison.
A Columbus man is behind bars after Fairfield County deputies say they tried to meet someone he believed was a child for sex. Now, investigators say 53-year-old Patrick Smith was communicating online with someone he thought was an underage girl. They say he arranged to meet at Brooks Park in Millersport, where deputies arrested him. Authorities say no actual child was involved, as it was part of an undercover investigation. Smith is facing several charges. 25 other people are facing charges after an undercover child exploitation.
All right, up in Michigan, a Genesee County man who is facing charges in an alleged child sex abuse case is facing more charges after officers found child sexually abusive material on his phone. This is Jordan Craig, a 19-year-old, and he was charged with 1 count of accosting a child for immoral purposes. 1 count of using a computer to commit a crime, and 1 count of capturing or distributing an image of an unclothed person, and 7 counts of child sexually abusive activity. According to the Genesee County Sheriff's Office, Craig allegedly tried to meet with a person that he believed was a child for sex on February 4th. Well, one of my favorite sheriffs, Chris Swanson, who beats Ghost, he caught this guy too, as well as several other people. So, I mean, you all don't know about him, so better beware if you're looking for children out there. Anyways, he's now awaiting a preliminary hearing as he sits in the Genesee County Jail, along with several other chomos up there. See ya, chomo.
Well, now to Madera County, where a man is behind bars accused of possessing child sexual abuse material. The Madera County Sheriff's Office arrested 34-year-old Jeremy Flood in Oakhurst. The investigation began after a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children regarding Flood. On Wednesday, authorities served a search warrant at a home near Meadow Lane and Pine Ridge Road. During the search, investigators seized devices belonging to Flood that contained child sex abuse material. Flood was arrested and booked into the Madera County Jail.
Pornography charges. Police say after a church employee under arrest on child pornography charges. Police say after a 7-month investigation acting on a tip, 34-year-old Jason Ford was taken into custody by the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit at his Donaldson home early Wednesday morning. Police say Ford is the facility's coordinator at Nashville's Midtown Fellowship Church. This is him pictured up on their website as Jay Ford. Police say he shared a video of a nude female child doing a lewd dance on the app Kik, and they were able to trace it back to Ford's account and his home address. Neighbors there tell us he lives at home with another woman, and they mostly keep to themselves.
From time to time, they come out, just like gardening and stuff.
Some saw police activity early Wednesday and say the accusations are alarming.
It was really concerning. Like, my first thought is, my baby plays in the front yard all day, all the time. I'm just, shocked.
WSMV reached out to Nashville's Midtown Fellowship Church about Ford's arrest and employment status. They told us they were having meetings about it at the church this morning. The second suspect is 46-year-old Lawrence Nelson. He was arrested for sharing a video on Instagram of a minor engaging in an act with an adult. He's now being held on $10,000 bond. Jason Ford is now being held on $75,000 bond. Police believe there may be more victims out there, and they are asking them to come forward. We are still waiting for a response from the church. Outside Metro Police Headquarters, I'm Diana Rocco, WSMV4.
All right, so that was our Diana Rocco, who's been on top of this story since news first broke earlier today. So Lawrence Nelson and then the church employee, Jason Ford. It's unclear how the two knew each other or if there's any connection there at all. But again, two people have been arrested. Jason Ford, 34 years old, and then Lawrence Nelson, 46 years old. And they believe they were communicating through this app, Kik. I wasn't familiar with it until this story, and it seems like it's kind of just one of these sketchy ways to communicate with, with different people, and certainly it seems that's how these people were allegedly sending different child pornography videos, including, it looks like, possibly a nude underage girl dancing. And then obviously there was some Instagram here involved as well. So we have both of their pictures online. Again, obviously innocent until proven guilty, but police believe these two people, there could be more victims involved, and they're just urging anybody who went to this church or who knows either of these two men, if you had any contact with them or if your kids knew them or whatever that relationship may have been, absolutely worth having that conversation and then getting in touch with police. So we're going to continue following this story. Of course, reach out to us with any questions that you might have, and then tune in for the 10 o'clock news. We're going to be covering the weather, certainly this story, definitely all things data centers as well. If you joined us in here last night, you were with us when Braden stepped out of that Metro Council meeting where everybody was given 2 minutes, 250 people, 2 minutes to share why they don't want data centers coming to Metro Nashville. So 2 of those bills moved forward. That public meeting went clear into the night. I believe it wrapped up around 2 in the morning. So a late night for a lot of people, including our elected officials. We're going to break that down at 10 o'clock.
New at 10 starting this month. If you sexually abuse a child in Mississippi, you could face the death penalty, a new state law just taking effect. Tonight, 3 Interside's Chris Fields joins us now to break down what it means and who it applies to. Chris?
Hey, Howard. So if you're a parent or anyone who cares about protecting children in this state, this law was written with you in mind. Mississippi lawmakers say they've had enough. And starting July 1st, the most severe punishment in the law now applies to the most severe crimes against children.
If you commit a crime of this nature, we're gonna put you up for the death penalty in Mississippi.
That will now be the reality for anyone who commits sexual crimes against minors here in Mississippi. 3 on Your Side spoke with lawmakers who authored the bill.
It is unfortunate that these crimes occur at all, but I do believe the people of the state of Mississippi across party lines cannot tolerate such behavior.
The new law is Senate Bill 2821. It creates capital sexual battery. It is punishable by the death penalty. Under this new law, prosecutors can seek a death sentence for sexual battery against a child who is under 12 years old, or an attempt to do so that injures the child's sexual organs.
There's been this drive to bring back capital punishment for those crimes, such as the death penalty and life imprisonment. And the reason, I think, is because those are such shock to conscience kind of crimes that we want to send a message to criminals and to society that we're not going to tolerate these kind of crimes.
To make a defendant eligible for death, jurors must unanimously find at least 2 aggravating factors beyond reasonable doubt. If less than 8 jurors vote for death, the jury recommendation becomes life. With more of these cases making news headlines, lawmakers are content with their decision to push such legislation.
Well, it's a sad commentary on where we are as a people. One of the biggest problems we have in government, we treat symptoms of problems, not the actual problem.
But not everyone supports the death penalty, even for crimes like these.
They're not going to like the death penalty for any instance. If you ask me, this is a prime example of why we do have the death penalty, is for this type of a crime.
There's certain things in civilized society that people should not debate, and that is the sexual abuse of a child, certainly a child under the age of 12.
The bill also updates state law to ensure life without parole sentences under this act are not parole eligible. So does the new law apply to previous cases? Well, it does not. Only to cases after July 1st of this year. And to add, any death sentence under the new law would also get automatic review by the Supreme Court. I'm Chris Fields, 3 on Your Side.
A longtime Plano ISD teacher is now charged with continuous sexual abuse of a child. Good evening, I'm Steve Eager. It's 9 o'clock. 64-year-old Paul Campbell was arrested today at district headquarters. Police say the alleged crime occurred at Brinker Elementary School, where Campbell has worked for many, many years as a teacher and coach. Fox 4's Peyton Yeager spoke to Plano police about this investigation. Peyton.
Steve, and we are told 64-year-old Paul Campbell had a scheduled staff meeting this morning here at Plano ISD. He pulled into the parking lot here for that scheduled staff meeting, and police took him into custody on a warrant. And police told us he was surprised, caught off guard by officers.
Individual who's a Plano ISD second grade school teacher named Paul Campbell.
25-plus-year Plano ISD employee Paul Campbell of Dallas now charged in alleged on-campus sexual abuse of one of his students at Brinker Elementary. Plano police contacted by the second grader's parents over the holiday weekend.
The morning of July 4th, after an outcry that was made at home by a 8-year-old student of Mr. Campbell to the family members. The information that was provided from the child that made the outcry had been corroborated. Yes, ma'am.
The charge Campbell faces: continuous sexual abuse of a child, a first-degree felony. Police say the inappropriate physical contact happened multiple times on campus inside Brinker Elementary this past school year. When it started, still unclear. It's also unclear if there are other victims.
There's potential that there is more.
That's why the investigation will press on. Police urging parents to contact them with any information.
They're doing some more interviews and for other people that from names that have been provided by the original accuser. So they are doing a follow-up on that, but whether they're victims or not, I don't know.
And Steve, we also heard from Plano ISD today in a statement saying this alleged conduct is reprehensible and completely inconsistent with the values and expectations it holds for all Plano ISD employees. The district goes on to say that it is fully cooperating with this investigation and initiated action on Campbell's employment. As for Campbell, he is still in the Plano City Jail tonight. I'm told he should be moved to the Collin County Jail overnight or tomorrow morning, where he will see a judge.
We got a little bit of an interesting story for you here. It's out of Texas. On July 2nd, Constable Ryan Gable's Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force and the Safe Harbor detectives arrested Noel Walker. It's a 20-year-old here out of Conroe, Texas, following an extensive investigation that originated from a cyber tip referral from, of course, none other than the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. After receiving that cyber tip, detectives initiated a comprehensive investigation that utilized the search warrants, the digital forensic examinations, and, of course, other investigative techniques, which ultimately developed sufficient probable cause to obtain an arrest warrant for this chomo. Now, the main thing that sticks out to me is he has, of course, 5 counts of possession of child sexually abusive material, which are classified as first-degree felonies under Texas law. But check this out. He's being arrested for 1 count of promotion or possession of a childlike sex doll, classified as a state jail felony under the Texas law. So let me put this out to you. It's only been happening for the past couple of years, but China and a few other Asian countries, shall we say, have been putting these sex dolls out for sale, and they look like little kids. So technically, there are states out there that do not classify this as being harmful or hurtful to us, but there are other states out there that are classifying this as a straight-up felony. Of course it should be. I mean, who in their right mind is going to have a sex doll that looks like a little child? This is insane. So keep this in mind. Let's get this stuff off the streets. Anyways, investigators believe the electronic devices that were seized during this investigation contained more than 100,000 different video and image files of suspected child sexual abuse materials and videos, whatever. So a comprehensive forensic examination is still ongoing, and additional state and federal charges are being filed towards this chomo. Yeah. How about that one?
The Columbia County Sheriff's Office says 20-year-old Connor Gooding thought he was sending sexually explicit images and text messages to a child, but what he was really doing was sending those things straight to a detective. The Columbia County Sheriff's Office arrested 20-year-old Connor Gooding on June 29th after they say he traveled across county lines to meet with who he thought was a child, but who he was really actually meeting up with was an undercover detective posing as a minor. The Sheriff's Office says Gooding sent that detective obscene photographs and sexually explicit text messages. They also say that he asked the decoyed child specific questions about their parents' schedule to learn about when and where they could meet. During the investigation, the Sheriff's Office says Gooding told the detective he works at a daycare where he has access to other children. His LinkedIn profile states that he's a youth fitness coach at Kids Strong in St. Johns County, a kids development center where coaches work directly with children ranging from toddlers up to 11 years old. We visited that location to confirm his employment, and we were met with no comment.
I definitely think that he probably shouldn't have had that access.
Andrew Agri is a parent in St. Johns County. He says any facility in involving children needs to be aware of who they're hiring.
I think maybe more of a thorough process needs to be put in before they're allowing people around kids, because if it was my child, I wouldn't want my child just to be around anybody. I think it should raise an awareness and a seriousness in parents.
Gooding was released on a $430,000 bond the day after his arrest. For local coverage you can count on in St. Johns County, I'm Casey Stone, Action News Jax.
This is new tonight out of Stanislaus County. Sheriff's deputies say a vigilant mom helped them capture a man accused of sexually exploiting more than a dozen children. KCRA 3's Anahita Jafari is here now in our studio with all of the details on this case.
Yeah, Edie, this all started back in February when that mom reported that a man was contacting her daughter. She told them the man requested the girl create sexually explicit images of herself online. Detectives were able to identify the man as 26-year-old Miguel Esquivel of Fort Worth, Texas. This is an image of him being arrested on May 10th on charges of possession of child sexual abuse material. They say their investigation found Esquivel was talking with more than 30 kids across multiple states. So far, 14 victims have been identified in California, Arizona, Texas, Illinois, Colorado, New Mexico, and New Jersey. He's now awaiting additional federal charges related to child exploitation, and more charges are expected. In Golston, Edie, the sheriff's office is also saying that this is a reminder for parents to remain vigilant when it comes to paying attention to what your child is doing online and what they're accessing as well.
Yeah, I mean, it can be hard for parents to know exactly, how to do that, but there are so many resources online. I'm going through this myself. I have a preteen and a teenager, and you just have to do it. It's really important.
Idaho Falls. A solemn atmosphere filled the courtroom today as family members, state prosecutors, and defense attorneys gathered for the sentencing hearing of 24-year-old Luke Birch. Yeah, this chomo. I mean, look at him. The greasy hair, the chomo stash, the beady eyes, even the ears give him away. These proceedings follow a major investigation which was spearheaded by the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, which began in the spring of last year, 2025. Birch was arrested last summer after a multi-agency raid on his home uncovered a massive digital archive which contained approximately 4,000 images and videos of child sexually abusive material. He appeared before the court today to learn his fate after entering guilty pleas to 2 severe charges. Out of about probably 11 to start with, because there were some plea deals that went on there. Those images and videos were pretty darn disgusting. They should have just put them up for life to start with. But we're about to find out exactly what goes on, because now, right in front of us, we have his sentencing hearing. That's right. Well, Luke Birch, we're about to find out what happens to you, Chomo. We'll see you on the flip side.
All right, just on the record, this is CR 1025-6869, State v. Luke Birch. We're here for sentencing. Sir Hayes Stavinsky. For the defense, from the Attorney General's office, your name, please?
Jeff Nye, Jen-Y-E.
Mr. Stavinsky, are you ready to go forward with sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Birch, let me just review a few things with you in this case. A number of charges. 10 charges pursuant to a plea agreement. Count 1, which was lewd conduct with a child under 16, you pled guilty to that charge. Count 2, which was possession of child sexually exploitative material, you pled guilty to that charge. As part of the agreement, the state agreed to dismiss counts 3 through 11. Does that sound correct to you?
Yes.
Court ordered a pre-sentence report, a psychosexual evaluation. I reviewed those. Have you seen the pre-sentence report?
I believe so.
All right. Do you wish to stand by your plea of guilty to count 1 and count 2?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Stavinsky, any comments on the pre-sentence report?
No, Your Honor.
All right, let's start with your recommendations for sentencing, Mr. Stavinsky.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Now, And before I proceed to sentencing, I would like to call one witness on behalf of my client.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Stavinsky.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you know Luke Spurge?
I do know Lucas.
How do you know him?
He's my nephew.
And how long have you known him for?
I've known him his whole life.
Have you been interacting with him this whole time?
Not since he's been in jail, but yes, I've interacted with him his whole life. His mom and I were pregnant at the same time.
And did you live close by?
Yes, we've always lived within 50 miles of each other or less.
And have you been, I guess, attending family events and hanging out together?
Birthdays and graduations and reunions and get-togethers, Christmas parties. Yes.
Have you ever watched him, babysat him?
Yes, all of the above.
Throughout your interactions, so that's approximately about over 20 years?
24.
Throughout all the interactions, I guess, what can you tell us about Luke's and from your observations?
Lucas is just like a child of mine. I love him dearly. And that will never change regardless of the mistakes that he's made. It is kind of like a mother's heart. I know a lot of things about Lucas. He's loyal to a fault. You ask him for help, he's going to be there. To the point that even while up to being jailed, he was helping his grandmother who has COPD. He was helping her clean her house. He was helping her do chores. When she needed something heavy lifted, she called him. I also know that he helped his own family, his own mother, his own father, and his siblings in a capacity that some kids don't. They don't recognize, or maybe they're a little too selfish, but not Lucas. He was so happy to help his family. And I seen that in him every day. He also has an amazing capacity to want to do more, to learn more, to be more, to try his hardest, even when things really come hard to him. He was always looking for something new to tackle, whether it was taking apart an engine that he had no business taking apart, but he did, and he learned how to put it back together, and he was brave enough to ask for help. When he didn't know how to get it back together, he knew his resources. And I know that even through this, that he is capable of progressing and learning and growing. And I think that with the correct support and programming, that he's going to still has the chance to be somebody.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nye, any questions?
Yes, just a couple, Your Honor. Ma'am, you mentioned that you are familiar with Luke's, is that correct?
Yes.
And that you say he made some mistakes, is that how you characterized it?
To be honest, I don't quite understand specifically everything that has happened. I recognize the charges, and I recognize that those charges aren't something to be proud of for any of the families that are involved in this. So are they mistakes? It's not necessarily for me to judge. What I know is that he may have done something and has charges pressed against him.
So you understand, for example, that one of the counts he's pled guilty to was possession of child sexual abuse material?
Yes, that is what was read today.
And you haven't seen that video or image, have you?
No, I don't. I do not desire to.
Okay, no further questions.
Any follow-up, Mr. Stavinsky?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you. You're excused. Any other witnesses, Mr. Stavinsky?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, back to your recommendations on sentencing.
Yes, Your Honor. Because when it comes to sentencing, we look under Idaho Code 1925-21, and we're not here to even begin to talk about probation. We realize the seriousness of both charges merit incarceration. So really, our main argument is going to be for a fixed time and indeterminate time, and reasons why we believe the specific amount of time is appropriate. We believe that in this situation, imprisonment will provide appropriate punishment and deterrent to Mr. Birch. Imprisonment will provide an appropriate deterrent for other persons in the community. And looking at the two HEAL factors, of course, we have protection of society. I think imprisonment will ensure that while Mr. Birch is in custody and doing his programming and working towards his parole hearing, the societies can be protected. And he's been in custody for a while now as well, in jail. But also one of the two HEAL factors is rehabilitation. And of course, rehabilitation cannot happen unless the defendant has something to look forward to, some kind of a hope to eventually improve himself and get out back into the society. Seriousness of the offense, again, we're not disputing. These are very serious offenses, and they of course merit incarceration. Present this investigation that the investigator did a good job in outlining all the issues here. Mr. Birch also submitted to psychosexual evaluation and a psychological evaluation. It does have minimal criminal history. As should also point out, as far as this case, he's talked to the police, he has admitted wrongdoing, he's waived his preliminary hearing, he's pled guilty to the crime, he's taking full responsibility. He's not minimizing anything, and he's ready here to face his sentencing. He's a young man. You heard from his aunt. It's somebody who is, once he's applying his energy in a positive way, he can succeed. Concerning all the circumstances here, Your Honor, we're asking the court to impose a 6-year fixed sentence with 24 indeterminate. I think this is going to be a serious sentence, but at least gives him the chance to work towards going in front of the parole board and convincing the parole board that he's capable of being supervised out in the community. Again, on the two HEAL factors, indeterminate sentencing is important because it gives the parole board a chance to make the determination years in the future to figure out exactly what kind of needs to be done, whether or not he's in danger, whether or not he's been working towards improving himself. And but again, the unified sentence is severe, and that's what he is asking, Your Honor. And this shows maturity on his part. Shows that somebody is here to face justice, but at the same time, with this kind of unified sentence, I think it's going to satisfy the two HEAL factors. It's going to satisfy the sentencing criteria under 1925-21, and hopefully, eventually, he'll be able to be paroled and be a productive member of society. That's the whole, again, under the two HEAL factors and the sentencing criteria. He's somebody who can be rehabilitated, and he's somebody who's willing to do that, and he's somebody who's willing to put in the hard work. And but again, he understands that he needs to serve a significant prison sentence to make sure that this sentencing criteria and two HEAL factors are satisfied. He's very remorseful for what happened, and at this point, the only thing he can do is take his punishment and show prove to the society that he's capable of being out there and he's not going to be a danger to society on board, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, the one in the pre-sentence report was from one of the children that was featured in one of the videos. I also have here with me a victim impact statement from both the victim in count 1 as well as her mother.
Okay.
They would like me to read those if that's okay.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first one is from the victim, who I will refer to as AW. My name is AW, and I am 15 years old. I am writing this statement to explain why I hate my cousin and the pain he has caused me, and that every day I have to be scared and depressed because of the flashbacks I have and can't get rid of. Before this happened, I felt safe around my family and friends and trusted the people around me. Since the assault, my life has changed in ways that are hard to explain. I struggle with feelings of fear, sadness, anger, confusion, hatred, suicidal thoughts, and anxiety. There are days when I feel overwhelmed and exhausted emotionally. Because the person who hurt me was my family, I'm even more sad and depressed. It is difficult to feel safe or comfortable at family gatherings, and sometimes I feel alone even when I am around people I love. This has affected my mental health, my ability to trust others, and sometimes my school life and friendships. I had moments where I feel scared and suicidal. I have trouble sleeping or think about what happened when I do not want to. I don't want to go to school and was even placed in a mental facility because of what he did. I hate what he did to me, what I think about myself after, and the anger and hatred I have for him. What happened was not just one moment. The effects continue every day. I am trying to heal and continue with mental health services. I want the court to understand that I did not deserve what happened to me. I was hurt by someone I should have been able to trust. Even though this has been very difficult, I am working on becoming stronger and continue going to school. I hope for safety, healing, and peace in the future. I will not allow him to hurt others or allow him to continue to hurt me. AW. The next one, Your Honor, is from her mother. Dear Judge, the incident that happened to my daughter has caused it to be difficult to trust people. This occurred with a person who should have been a trusted adult in her life. I have felt immense guilt with what happened because I was allowing her to be around this person because they are family and were supposed to be a trusted adult. My daughter went from being free from non-epileptic seizures for a couple years to having them again. Her non-epileptic seizures are stress and anxiety induced. Her anxiety levels have increased since this happened. My daughter has attempted suicide twice since then. The first time was within a couple months of what happened, and the second was within the last 4 months. It is extremely difficult to watch my child go from confident and capable of making it through stressful events successfully to needing to have a rescue medication on standby and her possibly not being able to attend or participate because of her seizures. I have watched her regress in things that she had years of interventions and therapies to overcome or improve on since this happened. My daughter has cerebral palsy, autistic tendencies, generalized delays, clinical depression, and anxiety. When she was younger, she had non-epileptic absent seizures and had selective mutism. With working with a counselor, CBRS, and her prior neurologist, she was able to overcome these. Her non-epileptic seizures came back this year, but are far worse than they were before, and her body convulses or twitches with them. My daughter was diagnosed with PTSD following what happened to her. I watched her go from being able to attend stressful school events like debate tournaments and trying out for state tournaments, as well as theater camp and sold-out plays, to barely making it through her last play. She almost didn't get to participate in her last play due to her anxiety. It was extremely difficult watching her struggle with the anxiety and needing to be given a PRN medication so she could finish the play. Sincerely, and it's signed by the victim's mother.
And your recommendations for sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So I'd like to just briefly provide a sketch of some of the facts, and I know the court has read the PSI, so I'm not going to get into the weeds on those, but I do think there's a pattern that's important for the court to recognize. This case started in April of 2025 when the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force received a cyber tip indicating that someone subsequently identified as the defendant had uploaded 18 videos of child sexual abuse material. In those videos, there were children between the ages of 5 and 6 up through 14 in various sexual acts, and this resulted in investigators starting to look into it, obtaining a search warrant, and they were able to connect it to the defendant. When they got the search warrant back, what they found inside those images was actually the picture of a business card of a Bonneville County Sheriff's deputy. And so when the investigator reached out to that deputy, that's when they first learned that the defendant was also a suspect in a lewd conduct case, which eventually led to count 1 in this case. They also found in the results of that search warrant messages between the victim in count 1 and the defendant. And those messages are telling, Your Honor, because it is the defendant asking the victim to find a 14 or 15-year-old girl that he could engage in sexual activity with. It shows that the defendant was actively engaged in seeking this out. And eventually in that conversation, he zeroes in on the victim herself and starts offering her money to engage in sexual activity with him, knowing full well that she was underage. In June of 2025, there was a residential search warrant that was conducted on the defendant's home. His phone was seized, he was interviewed. He admitted to watching child sexual abuse material, including as young as infants being sexually abused. He also admitted to the abuse of AW and admitted that he had lied to the police the first time he was interviewed about that and denied it. Now, there are, as the court looks through the materials, 2 stories that came about of the actual sexual abuse of the victim in count 1. And at the end of the day, in the state's view, it doesn't much matter which version you go with. If it's the victim's version, she told him no repeatedly, and he did it anyway. If it's the defendant's version, it was in exchange for money. Either way, this is a child who cannot legally consent, and either one of those scenarios is an especially troubling way to sexually abuse a child. Now, that search of the phone that he possessed in June of 2025 also found, the detective estimated, approximately 4,000 images of child sexual abuse material. So we're not talking about just a few or something that could have happened in a momentary lapse of judgment. These are many, many, many images and videos. I won't get into great detail of those, but just to note how horrific some of these were. They depicted children ages 5 to 13, children performing oral sex on adult males, bestiality involving children, female children having foreign objects inserted into their vagina. And in one particularly heinous video, a 7 to 9-year-old female performing oral sex on an adult male only to have him then perform anal sex on her while she's crying. These are horrific videos, Your Honor, that the defendant was accessing and presumably viewing. Now, the pattern that I mentioned that I wanted to flag is important to the state in this case because as the state investigates these ICAT cases, we call them, this is really our worst nightmare. This is an individual who started by seeking child sexual abuse material. He then started seeking a real child, a live child victim, and then he eventually acted on that and abused a live child, an underage victim. And that series of progression is important and I think informs this court's analysis under the 2 Hill factors, and I know the court is well aware of those. I wanted to briefly touch on each of them and how they relate to this case. Starting with punishment. Punishment is important in this case, Your Honor, because of the harm that was caused to the victims. The court just heard the victim impact statements that I read. I know the court has reviewed the victim impact statement that was contained in the PSI, and I would specifically note in there, I'm not going to read the whole thing given the length and because I want to respect privacy, but I just want to emphasize how much that child who was featured in that video is now helpless. There are men across the country, including the defendant, who are using this video of her most vulnerable moment for their own sexual gratification. And she describes in great detail the pain and the suffering that has caused to her. In addition to the victim from count 1 that I read earlier in court. Now, the defendant mentioned to the pre-sentence investigator that he doesn't remember much about what happened and that he's trying to forget it. But I think it's important to keep in mind that these victims don't have that luxury. They can't forget this. That's the repeated theme throughout these victim impact statements that we've heard and read, is that they can't forget this. Even when they want to, even when they try, it's never going to go away for them. And because of their age at the time they were victimized, they're looking at a very long time of remembering what was done to them. Now, I think it's primarily because of the harm to the victims that the PSI writer recommended a prison sentence, and the state, of course, agrees with that. Now, I also wanted to note that the state does disagree with the characterization that the defendant has taken full responsibility in this case. I think the psychosexual evaluator has spelled out in great detail how he has actually failed to take full responsibility in this case, including by telling the psychosexual evaluator that the allegations made against him have been exaggerated. In fact, He goes so far in his conversation with the psychosexual evaluator to actually blame the victim for the behavior, saying, and this is on page 17, Your Honor, he holds his alleged victim responsible for his sexual behavior because she kept coming over to see him, appeared and acted older, asked for it by the way she looked and talked, was so curious and interested in sex, led him on all the way, already had sexual experience, was loose or easy, and wanted and liked the sexual things that happened. That does not sound like someone who has taken full responsibility for their conduct. And so punishment weighs heavily in favor of a severe punishment in this case. Next, Your Honor, on deterrence. Obviously, the state always has an overall broad concern of deterring other would-be offenders from engaging in misconduct, and it's important that the sentence reflect that individuals will be punished for this kind of behavior in the community. In this case, we are particularly concerned with specific deterrences to this defendant, and that is primarily because the defendant has minimized in so many ways the harm that he has caused these victims. Again, referring to the psychosexual evaluation, he tells the psychosexual evaluator that no one was hurt by what happened, and then later finally does acknowledge that they were technically harmed. And even when he uses that word technically, it's in reference to a singular victim. He seems to fail to grasp that there are multiple victims, thousands of them, when you look at the child sexual abuse material that the defendant was engaged in viewing. On the factor of rehabilitation, which has been touched on today, I do want to note that in this case in particular, while age is oftentimes seen as a mitigator, in some ways the state sees it as an aggravator here. And what I mean by that is, I've talked about the pattern that we've seen this defendant go through, and the pattern itself is troubling, but what is almost more troubling than the pattern is the relative speed with which the defendant's conduct escalated. We have a young individual here who, in his young life as an adult, has already gone from regular pornography to seeking out illegal child sexual abuse material to seeking out a live victim to acting on a live victim. And we find that troubling. We think that it makes rehabilitation more difficult. The psychosexual evaluator noted on page 40 that the intensity in treatment should be high. So if there is any hope of rehabilitation here, it's going to take a lot of treatment. And the psychosexual evaluator also noted on page 31 that the defendant would be a challenging treatment client. And part of the reason for that is because he lacks the ability or simply chooses not to reflect on his own behavior, which she calls a critical part of the treatment process. Finally, Your Honor, of course, I'd like to end with what the Supreme Court has called the most important of the two Hill factors, and that is the protection of society. And we believe it weighs heaviest in this case in deciding a severe punishment for the defendant. It is no wonder that the psychosexual evaluator found that he is at a high risk to reoffend. And I recognize that his LSI score is low. I recognize that the PSI investigator said that he was at a low risk, but I think the more precise evaluation that was done for the specific crimes he committed is the psychosexual evaluation, and it found that he was at a high risk to reoffend. And I would note that on the first page of that psychosexual evaluation, it specifically points out that when she says a high risk to reoffend, that's compared to other sex offenders. That's not compared to the general population. So with respect to sex offenders, he is at a high risk to reoffend. That cries out for protection of society and of a lengthy period of incarceration followed by a lengthy period or a lengthy indeterminate period, so that if he does get out, he is still under supervision, and we can do our best to ensure that he does not repeat this again. Now, Your Honor, having said all of that, the state is ready to acknowledge that, as I understand what was just explained in court, that it was actually the defendant who had asked for the lengthy sentence of a fixed term of 6 years and 24 indeterminate. And the state is willing to acknowledge that that shows some hope, that he recognizes, he now perhaps more than when he conducted these interviews recognizes the seriousness of his crimes. The state had actually landed at the same total number, though with a slight variation in fixed and determinate. The state would recommend that this court impose a prison sentence of 15 fixed with 15 indeterminate. And For the reasons that have been stated, particularly the punishment, we think the 15 years fixed is appropriate in this case. And then while 15 indeterminate is longer perhaps than we would ask for in other cases, we think given the high risk to reoffend here, it is incredibly important that he be under some form of supervision when he gets out into the community to keep him from committing further crimes. In addition to that, Your Honor, we would ask that the no contact order be extended for 30 years. The current no contact order expires in June of 2028. We would also ask the court to hold restitution open for 60 days. As part of the plea agreement, the defendant did agree to pay for restitution. As I understand it, the victim in count 1 is still working on gathering those materials, and so we would ask that it be held open for 60 days. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Bert, you have the right to make a statement. Is there anything you would like to say?
Other than by being truly honest, I deeply do regret doing both of my crimes and everything that is associated with them.
All right. Factors I consider in sentencing are protection of society. That is first and foremost. Look at deterrence, punishment, rehabilitation. I think all of those factors apply to a degree. I look at what's gone on before, but not a lot as far as a criminal record. But that's not terribly unusual when we talk about these sex crimes. It's usually sex crime is the focal point of a criminal record, and again, it's not like your typical sentencing on possession of a controlled substance where there's a lot of prior crimes leading up to that. Pretty typical that you don't have a lot of prior record on something like this, so that's not necessarily surprising. I look at appreciated the victim impact statements, both in the pre-sentence report as well as the ones read by Mr. Nee. We're talking about thousands of images, which means we're talking about thousands of victims in this, and the descriptions of what's in the images is, I think, it was Mr. Nee's word, horrific. It's just awful. It's just extremely troubling. The children are going through this, and then people like you, Mr. Birch, are facilitating that by uploading it and watching it and being part of that group that facilitates this insidious practice. The victim in this case as well on count 1. Yeah, that's a huge concern, because that is trauma, psychological and mental trauma, that she will live with the rest of her life. It's not something that she should have gone through at the age of 13 and 14. It's not something that she should have been subjected to. But now she has, and she's going to have to live with that. So you have to balance the damage going forward, the damage caused by your actions, and how we address that, what the consequences are for that. Count 1, lewd and lascivious conduct, the sentence on that will be 12 years fixed and 18 years indeterminate for a total of 30 years. Count 2, possession of child exploitative material, the sentence on that will be 10 years fixed. I will run those sentences concurrent. There'll be a fine of $1,000 on each count. State will have 60 days within which to seek restitution. You are required to register as a sex offender, compliance with the Idaho Sex Offender Registration Act. Reimbursement to the public defender in the amount of $500. Court costs and victims' relief fund will be assessed with the standard amount. Any questions on that, Mr. Stavinsky?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Nee?
Your Honor, on the no contact order, could we get that extended?
No contact order extended. The duration of this case, which will be 30 years from today's date. Any other questions, Mr. Nee?
No, Your Honor, I did bring a partially filled out no contact order if the court would like that.
Sure. Mr. Birch, do you have any questions about today's sentencing?
No.
You have the right to appeal this decision. If you want to appeal, you should do that within 42 days. You have the right to an attorney on appeal. If you cannot afford an attorney, one would be appointed for you. Do you have any questions about your rights on appeal?
I don't fully understand the process of appeal.
I'll discuss it with him, Your Honor.
All right. So I've just announced your judgment of conviction in this case. If you think that I've been legally wrong or abused my discretion, you can appeal that decision to the Supreme Court. That's your rights of appeal. And you have a limited amount of time to do that, so that's something you need to make a decision on. All right, if there's nothing else, then counsel, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Well, the District Judge Dane H. Watkins Jr. made his decision, handed down a massive unified sentence of 30 years behind bars to his chomo, Mr. Luke Birch. He'll be serving a minimum of 12 years fixed in a state prison before he's eligible to request parole. On the secondary charge of possessing child exploitative material, the judge imposed a concurrent 10-year fixed sentence also, and well, hopefully Bubba will get a hold of him before that 12 years is up, you know what I'm saying there. But regardless, okay, in delivering the penalty, the court emphasized the profound psychological trauma that's inflicted upon the underage relative, noting that the young victim will carry the weight of this chomo's fucking actions, right, for the rest of her life. These guys don't care about anything but sexual gratification. Nothing seems to ever stop them, and the sheer number of them continues to grow. It's sad. It's a sickness. I don't get why it just keeps getting worse. Well, this judge also extended a strict no-contact order, thankfully, for the next 30 years to ensure the family's ongoing safety and peace of mind. Still doesn't matter. I mean, I'm sure that if he does get out, he's going to find another victim. I mean, look at him. He's got the greasy hair, the beady eyes, the chomo mustache. He's got that look. Hopefully he doesn't survive prison. Well, anyways, with the legal proceedings now concluded, the family and the community they're sitting there left to pick up the pieces of a devastating breach of trust. Birch is going to be transferred to the custody of the Idaho Department of Corrections to begin serving his time immediately, of course. Well, hope he gets a good cellmate, if you know what I mean. Welcome to the Sex Offender Hitlist, chomo.
Broken homes, broken lives, names behind polite disguise. Could be a smile, could be a badge, could be a hand that hides the scratch. You learn too late, you read the signs, the damage keeps its own time. But I see the mess, I see the crack, and I won't look back. No more silence in the hall, no more shadows on the wall. Every lie gets cut down clean, every sick excuse breaks me. The chipper is made for you, the chipper will chew on you. Every mask comes off, every lie gets crushed. The chipper is made for you, the chipper will chew on you. We protect the scared, we drag truths into church pew, classroom badger suit. Any room can hide the bruise. Any voice can learn to preach, then leave a child too far to reach. So mark the hand and name the shame. Don't let power wash the blame. Call it out, make it plain. Break the chain. No more silence in the hall, no more shadows on the wall. Every lie gets cut down need you to. We protect the scared. We drag truth into air. Let the guilty face the light. Let the hunted sleep tonight. Not with fists, not with flame. We bring proof, we speak names. Let the courts and the sirens move. Let the whole dark network lose. What they took won't disappear, but the reckoning is here. Justice comes for you, but you won't lead you told. Every mask comes off, every lie gets crushed. Justice comes for you. Justice comes for you. We protect the scared. We drag truth into air. Stand up, speak up, no more fear. Justice lives here.
One for Rainbow, one for Amanda.
Who you playing with, sweetie?
Amanda.
Oh, who are you?
I'm Amanda. I'm 6, and I love unicorns.
Sexual predators are seeking kids online.
We don't know Amanda.
Learn how to report abuse at end-violence.org/protect.